Welcome back to OpenLine. We are talking about a Tennessee Season to Remember. This is an event honoring the victims of murder all across Tennessee. It'll happen Thursday, and it's going to be right here in Nashville. People will get to hang an ornament on a tree honoring a family member who is the victim of murder. Happy to have with us Tina Fox, State Director of Victim Services. Thank you again for being here. And Trina Scott, whose husband David Scott was a Clarksville police officer who was murdered, vehicular homicide, while on duty back in 2002. And thank you for sharing your story.
You're welcome.
We had a call, Sandy, who said, how does she get her name? How does she become part of this? You encouraged her to come on down to the event on Thursday, but how would she register? Let's say there are others out there. How would they register with Victim Services?
With Victim Services, there is an opportunity for victims and victims' family members to register for what we call parole action notifications. They can get registered for parole hearings, decisions of those parole hearings, and anytime the offender will be released on community supervision of parole. It's a simple process. They can complete a form or they can call us. We have opportunities for crime victims to call in so that they can receive via U.S. traditional mail those notifications.
And Trina was talking about how she has been to every parole hearing, and it's important for her to be there. You, again, attend many of these hearings. How often is there a family member there representing the victim, and how often is there not? Do you get a sense of that?
Yeah, so we hear about 1,400 cases every month. And I want to stress that every case has a victim.
Right.
And so there is not a week that doesn't go by that we don't have crime victims attending parole hearings, just not in Nashville, but across the state. We do offer video conferencing. Video conferencing, I contend, allows the crime victims to have a greater voice because they're not in the same room with the offender. It saves on travel. They don't have to drive from Memphis to Mountain City, for instance, to go to the institution. We do offer video conferencing in 6-7 sites across the state.
Good grief. So you have, and say that number again, how many of these a year?
Yeah, we average about 1,400 hearings a month.
13 or 14 a month?
A month.
13 or 1,400. Yes.
And again, the emphasis is on that every case has a crime victim.
And that's amazing. You said most inmates at some point will get out.
Yes.
97%.
Yes.
At some point will get out.
That's correct.
How often are people getting paroled, I guess would be the question. Are they getting out because they've served their sentence, or because at some point during the course of their sentence they got paroled? Do you know those numbers?
No, I don't know those numbers specifically, but again, I do know that according to state law, there are legal factors that must be reviewed and considered on each case. And again, public safety is the #1 factor. And then, of course, they look at criminal history, if offenders are actively participating in evidence-based practices, education, if they're getting GEDs, if they were mandated or if they took the initiative. So disciplinary infractions, there's just a raft of factors that must be reviewed and considered. And again, every case is individualized.
And Trina, you're going to go to this event this Thursday. Does your family go?
Well, my children are spread over, so I only have the one here. She has to work, so she won't be able to go, but I will be there.
How difficult is this time of year, and how difficult has it been over the course of all the years since this has happened?
The holidays are always the worst. You know, I mean, you have the special days that we call, you know, our little days that happen, birthdays and things like that, but the holidays are always difficult. However, I've learned with other survivors, with other victims, that we've learned to change up some things to help us get through it. So if my husband and I with the girls did something and it's going to be too emotional for my girls, then I might ask them, I ask them, what do you want to do this year? Let's do something different. Do you want to do this? Just to try to make it a little bit easier so we can change our routine. And again, to always be with someone,
What would you recommend? I want to ask two things of you. Okay. What would you recommend to other victims, the family members of other victims? Let's say you've been dealing with this for a long time now. This has just happened to another family member. You're talking to them, and maybe this is their first or second Christmas since this has happened. What advice do you have for them? What would you tell them?
To first breathe. Just breathe, and to listen to their feelings, their body, to them, because oftentimes the families want to help us get through this time, so they make suggestions that might not be better or the best thing for you. So I pretty much tell people to just go with what they are comfortable with. Even, I used to tell people that on funerals and things like that. Go with what's comfortable for you. If you want to put your loved one's stocking up, and if you want to sing his Christmas carols, if you want to do everything, go with that. Don't let someone tell you to hold it in right now due to the holidays, things like that, to feel.
Mm-hmm. It's okay to feel.
It's okay. It's okay. Whatever feeling you're having, whatever moment you're going through, go through it. There will never be a better moment or a not so better moment. You have to go through that. And so just be in that moment.
And then the other question I would have would be for people that have never been through this, but they're friends of yours or friends of someone who has had this happen, and they have the best of intentions and they want to help in some way and they don't know what to do. And so maybe they say things that are inappropriate, or maybe they say nothing. What would you recommend to that, that well-meaning, well-intentioned person who wants to reach out and help but really is not sure how or what to do?
Again, like with COPS, Concerns of Police Survivors, I used to tell when I would speak at the academies or things like that, and during a line of duty death, I would tell them, when you walk in there, it's all about that victim. So the first thing to say is just, I'm sorry, because there are so many, don't say, I've been where you are, because you haven't. And don't say anything but, I'm sorry, how can I help you get through this Christmas? What can we do to be there for you? And that's what I tell everyone, to just say, what can we do for you? And not use what you've done.
Mm-hmm. That's great. I appreciate that. And you're around this so much. Take those two questions and boil them down. What would you say? Give people advice on, well-meaning people, how to respond to some of these things.
Sure. So be slow to speak. It would be my advice, and to treat everyone like you would want to be treated if you were going through the very same scenario. We try to treat victims with dignity, respect, and being sensitive to their needs and having that compassion for them. And that's all that's required, just being of support, be a source of encouragement, have a shoulder readily available for them to lean on, but just be slow to speak and allow them to tell you what their needs are.
You don't need to share some story that's going to make everything better.
No.
Right?
No.
It's about just what?
Yeah, it's about listening attentively to what their needs are. It's not about having an answer. It's about listening attentively and learning to embrace what they're going through, and again, having that shoulder for them to lean on.
All right, let's go back to the phones here. Let's go to Ralph. Hello, Ralph. Are you there?
Yes, I am.
Go right ahead.
I want to say one thing. I've always have sympathy for crime victims, but they put somebody in the office like this governor who let out a heap of guys. If they're assaulting officers behind bars and the director knows it and don't speak about it to parole hearing, these guys don't deserve, or women don't deserve to be on the street. They don't even have, when I was correction officers transporting them, they don't even have us going up there and testifying about this guy's behavior while he's sitting locked up. Matter of fact, one crime victim fella was working as a correction officer. Nobody knew it, and he tried to get the guy in the car in Memphis at the courthouse. But the state covered that up because the guy had raped and killed his auntie. But they never let us testify at these hearings, and they never let the director speak about what the atrocities these guys doing behind these bars.
Are you saying as a corrections officer you wanted to speak at the parole hearing but you weren't allowed to speak? Is that what you're saying?
That's what I'm saying.
Okay.
A lot of corrections officers are not allowed to speak, and these victims have not had the opportunity to say that and approach us in that direction and have us go up and speak. They know that.
Well, thank you, Ralph. All right, I'll ask about that. So he's saying, I think what he's saying is he's a corrections officer. He knows how some of these people are acting behind bars, and he'd like to get up and speak about it, and he can't. Is there, I would think their record would be there for the parole officer to see, but should corrections officers speak, or is he right about that? What about what he's saying there?
Well, parole hearings are open to the public, and if the public has any interest in a case, they can always send in a letter. That letter under state law will remain confidential. So you don't necessarily have to physically attend a parole hearing to be heard. That letter could serve as your physical presence at that parole hearing. So I would encourage Ralph, if he does have any concerns, to put it in writing. And again, under state law, that letter or letters and statements must remain confidential.
But it would be part of the hearing.
It would be part of the
parole
hearing.
Officers would know it.
For review and for consideration.
Okay.
Yes.
All right, that's interesting, Ralph. I appreciate your call. That's interesting. All right, we're going to take a break. We'll come back. Be back right after this.